Hello friends and welcome to Ed Talks 12. I have something really exciting, super boring, super terrible. Look at this time around we're doing, oh geez, Mr. Edwards, seriously. Another black and white picture. This can't possibly be cool. Like, who is that guy? Oh man, this is gonna stink. What if I showed you a different picture? It's a picture that this guy had a hand in drawing and creating. What do you think of that? Yeah, that's right. This time around we're going to talk about something I know a great deal about, and that would be Disney, specifically Walt Disney. That's right, folks. This time around we're doing Disney, and it's awesome. Some fun little facts. First of all, to start off first, when I was 19 years old and lived in California back in 2010, there was a time when I went to Disneyland every single day for like 3 months. I had a yearly pass. It was great. I love everything about Disney, the movies, Disneyland, Disney World, although I've only been there once. Anyways, enough rambling. Disney himself was born on December 5th, 1901. He served in World War I as an ambulance driver for the Red Cross. Initially, he applied, but they're like, no, you're actually too young. So he faked his own birth certificate, resubmitted it, got approved, went to France, and was a ambulance driver for the Red Cross. Some of his initial works were published in a magazine called The Stars and Stripes. And if you remember one of my previous Ed Talks, I think Ed Talks 3 or 4, that other person is Shel Silverstein. Anyways, so some of his early art, like I mentioned, on the left here is Walt with his ambulance. You can see a picture of the soldier that he's got drawn on the side of it. And on his right, before Disney, was actually a cartoon by him and his, I'll call him partner in crime, Ub Iwerks. They worked together to create this character called Lucky the Rabbit, which you can see over here, and all his little buddies there. But obviously, ignore the 1928, that's supposed to say 1927. But anyways, so Ub and Disney and their group of workers there worked on this thing called Mickey Mouse. They initially wanted to call it Mortimer Mouse, but somebody said, nah, let's call it Mickey instead. But anyways, Mickey and Minnie first appeared in this little screen test called Playing Crazy. Now, a screen test, quite simply, is just, what they use to see, okay, is this working properly? Do we like it? How does it sound? Does it look? How does it feel? And then later that same year, Disney and Ub produced this very famous cartoon called Steamboat Willie. Now, I'm probably going to mention this a lot of times during this presentation, but cartoons weren't really on TV. In fact, until 1927 with a movie called The Jazz Singer, there wasn't any TV at all. You went to the movies if you wanted to be entertained by moving pictures. So what they did was, you're like, well, Miss Edward, if there aren't TVs or Netflix or any of that weird stuff, where did you see your cartoons? Like, I can't go on YouTube and watch, I don't know, Kratz Brothers or something. Well, no, you went to the movies, and during the intermission, which was like a break between a movie, they would show one of these cartoons for like 6-7 minutes long. And actually, you can find both of these on YouTube. But the idea was, it was just a funny little gag or like a funny little cartoon clip that you could watch and have a break or get up and do whatever you need to do before coming back to the movie. They would play one of these cartoons. And Steamboat Willie was one of the first. But, and you can see him here, Disney. He's actually the voice of Mickey Mouse and a bunch of these characters. And although Disney and Iwerks have designed Oswald, Minnie, Mickey, later Pluto, and all those other guys, what could be better? What could be better than making something that, they didn't know this at the time, but something that would become one of the most iconic, things ever. They're like, well, we want to go longer. We want to go color, we want to go song, the whole thing. We want to get really in there. And so they're like, well, what about a full-length movie? Like, this Jazz Singer thing just came out, and, Disney and Ub were like, I don't know, that sounds kind of like, are people watch the cartoons in the middle of the movies? Are they going to watch a whole movie of a cartoon? I don't know. They thought about it, and Disney decided, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And so the first movie he makes, Snow White. Now, this movie came out in the late 30s, so, but it's such an iconic movie that they have it on like Netflix and on DVDs and things like that. So, if friends want to see it, you totally can. But anyways, back in the day, it cost $1.5 million to make, which was 3 times more than they had originally were allowed to spend. But as you can see, they made over $6.5 million. They were nominated for awards and all those types of things. People were blown away. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. And actually, Snow White entered them into the original golden age of animation, which propelled them in the early 30s. You know, you had Pinocchio, and then in the 40s you had Dumbo, and then you just had hit after hit. You know, Peter Pan in the 50s, going all the way up to the 90s with the original Toy Story, or Toy Story was, yeah. And so they just kept going and kept going and kept going. And obviously today we have things like Frozen or what have you. But the point is, Snow White was the one that started all of these things. But what's next? I'm sure friends know what happens after he makes these movies. But let me ask you this. Like, you make Mickey Mouse the cartoon, you make Snow White, you make all these amazing movies. But Disney's still like, I don't know what to do. What's next? I know. How can I bring these characters to life? So I think friends know where I'm going with this now at this point. Yes, friends, Disneyland. I love Disneyland. Love it, love it, love it. Some of the rides most of these rides aren't really here anymore, except for the carousel that we will get to later. And of course, the one in Disneyland has, bam, Cinderella's Castle. In 1954, he started his plans for Disneyland, and then after years of planning, he met with his engineers, which he actually called Imagineers, building models, drawing things that he thought he wanted to have in the park, thinking about ideas, how to put characters in there. And finally, on July 15th in 1955, so only about a year or so later, the park was opened. It was ready. Now, when it officially opened, there was a lot of problems. There was big lines, way more than were actually invited. You know, it was crazy. People were just like, there's just so many people. It was actually kind of a bad thing because people were getting impatient, you know, all this type of thing. But you know, eventually it all worked out, and unfortunately 10 years later, before the Disney World was built, Mr. Disney actually passed away in 1965. But like I said, Disneyland, Disney World are obviously still around, with locations in Hong Kong and France, and I think there's one other one, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyways, up here you can see the King Arthur Carousel and the Alice in Wonder teacups, 2 rides that you can still see there today. The article that I read this from, and having seen them myself actually, said there's like 12 or 13 total rides that have still existed since 1955. Fun little fact, I have tried to pull this sword from the stone. It didn't come out. I have heard tales that it can be lifted, and if you do, Merlin comes out and you get a prize or something. But anyways, neither here or there. That's all we have for today. And until next time, bye my friends. Bye-bye.